I'm Deeksha Lamba, and I'm the Product Marketing Manager for Load Balancing. With me, I have Brian Batrashki, who is the Product Manager for Load Balancing.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm really excited to go through this with you.
So in this session, we'll broadly cover three things. First, we'll understand how load balancing resonates with the top-of-mind concerns of our customers. Secondly, we'll understand the different use cases for load balancing, including the various technical setups. Lastly, we'll cover the competitive landscape, our strengths, weaknesses, and a target audience. But before we begin the session, let's address the question as to why you should sell load balancing and why is this session even important for you? First, load balancing is a great hook and conversation starter, especially in the times that we are in today. The value proposition of this product really resonates well with the top of mind performance and reliability concerns of our customers. Secondly, you can leverage load balancing to increase your deal ACV size. We ran some numbers and we saw that load balancing contributes almost 25% to the overall ACV of the deals in which it was included. So including load balancing in your deals can actually give a boost to your ACV. And finally, you should sell load balancing because it's truly a good, mature core product that Cloudflare offers. It's a stable product. It's not something new that we are offering in the beta version. It can actually help you be a hero with your customers because it does not break. In fact, of the 301 incidents this year with Cloudflare, only 3 were LB related, which is a very minute number. So let's understand what are some of the top of mind challenges that our customers are facing today. Why are these challenges there at the first place? And what kind of solutions are organizations looking for? Sorry. Yeah. So firstly, there's an increase in volume and volatility of traffic that has caught organizations by surprise. Let's take an example of, say, Robinhood, the financial trading platform. Now, Robinhood opened net new 3 million new accounts in Q1 alone. That's almost 170% year-on-year increase that they saw in their activity levels. A similar spike in activity seen with other industries such as e-commerce. The closure of physical stores has actually accelerated the adoption of e-commerce, even with small and medium enterprises. What this means is that organizations, both big and small, are now finding themselves ill-equipped to handle such consistent spike in traffic. Especially the lack of scalability and agility which comes with the existing solutions in the market is constraining them. And as a result, these organizations are facing increased instances of outages. Now, outages or downtime is actually a key word here. Outages are always bad for your business, but even so now. Why? Because the cost of downtime or the cost of every second of downtime has actually increased substantially. So if you if every second of downtime was actually costing you, say, X dollars last year, it would now cost you at least 1.5X now. The reason being, every second of downtime now impacts more number of your customers. And the implication of this is that organizations now are looking for something that's stable and resilient, yes, but they're also looking for a solution that would enable them to make proactive decisions to optimize their infrastructure and preemptively avoid such instances of outages at the very first place. And lastly, the technical teams are under a lot of pressure at 2 fronts. First, the cost, and second, performance. Now, when it comes to cost spending,
Hello?
IT...
Hello, I'm calling on behalf of Irvine Valley College.
Hi, can you please put yourself on mute? Okay, I will continue anyway. Lastly, for optimizing IT spending, CIOs and CTOs are increasingly being asked to perform zero-cost budgeting. So what that means is it does not really matter what you were spending last year. You really need to justify every line item on your budget now. Now, this is especially true for traditional industries, which have been drastically impacted by this crisis. What this implies for us is that a lot of these traditional businesses have accelerated their timeline to move away from the hardware boxes so as to get the substantial cost savings in this bucket. Now, there are 3 ways in which Cloudflare load balancing can help you solve those challenges. First, Cloudflare load balancing helps deliver an uninterrupted online experience through its global and local traffic management capabilities. It helps organizations improve application performance and availability by distributing traffic to the closest and most responsive server pools. So organizations can use different logics to steer their traffic, whether this traffic is HTTPS, TCP, or UDP. Based on the use cases, they have a number of options. For example, they can dynamically steer their traffic based on latency, that is, choose the route with the minimum round trip time, or route traffic based on the location of the end users. So if you have a user logging in from North America and you want them to be routed to the service in US, or if you have a European customer and you want them to be routed to the servers in UK, you can do that with geosteering. This is especially important for organizations that want to deliver geo-specific content. So for example, if there's a multinational media entertainment organization that wants to deliver localized content to its German customers, yes, they can use geosteering just for that. And lastly, customers can use weighted configuration to avoid instances of server overload by allocating different weightages. Customers can direct more traffic to certain origins over the others. And this is especially important if they have different capacity or allocations, or they actually get direct cost benefits. Moving on to the second value proposition, Cloudflare load balancing helps avoid costly downtime in two ways. First, by enabling fast failover from unhealthy origins to healthy origins so that end users can reach an application all the time. Now, in fact, if the traffic is proxied by us, we don't even need to wait for the TTLs to expire. We can instantly reroute the traffic. That's a substantial performance improvement for our customers. And secondly, by actively monitoring the health of origins, our customers get the right information real time to make proactive decisions. Say, if they're able to identify the servers that are showing slow response time, they can actually investigate that issue and fix the underlying issues before the outage actually happens. And lastly, Cloudflare load balancing provides greater control, visibility, and agility to our customers. And this is not just in the way they do load balancing at the edge, but also in the cost structures. They can easily scale in no time without the need of adding more costly metals. They get granular insights into their traffic and origin health, and they get a centralized control plane to monitor their traffic and origins, especially if they exist in a multi-cloud or hybrid environment. A lot of you might be thinking, yes, we know load balancing. Load balancing is not new. Why is this important and how do we grab market share? Now, there are two reasons why we are in a good position to grab market share. First is the market dynamics is actually in our favor. Now, if you look on the chart on the left-hand side of the slide, as per Data9, F5 controls 73% of the load balancing market with its big IP solution. The next large chunk is controlled by AWS through its Elastic Load Balancers. So together, just the two players, they actually control 87% of the market. That's a huge chunk. Now, there are certain ongoing movements in the market that can help us grab market share from both the players. First, the movement away from the hardware boxes helps us get market share from F5. Now, if you read the annual reports of F5, this line of business continues to show failing growth. And while they might pitch virtual load balancers as an alternative, the same weaknesses and points of failure that remain in the hardware solutions continue to remain in the virtual solution as well. So it's not helpful, but it actually acts to our advantage. Second, the movement now is not just towards the cloud. No, that ship has sailed. The movement is now towards the multi-cloud and the hybrid cloud adoption. And that puts us in a good competitive advantage against AWS. So if you are, say, completely in an AWS environment, yes, AWS ELB works great for you. But the moment you want to include a second cloud provider, say GCP, or you want to include your data centers in the mix, you need a solution that blends seamlessly in a heterogeneous environment. And AWS is not meant to do that. And that's where we come in. Now, let's keep in mind that these movements in the market, they did not start today. It's not new, but they have been going on for some time. The only thing that has changed is that the timeline for these changes has been accelerated because of the crisis that we are in, and that puts us in a unique position. The second reason why we can win market share is because we have a great product. I will quickly go over the 4 key reasons that we see why our customers actually choose us. The first is a superior performance. We load balance at every POP, and not just load balance, we perform health checks at every location. Now, that's extremely important for our customers for 2 reasons. First, there is no single point of failure, and that helps improve the resiliency of their infrastructure. And the second, the speed of propagation. You add a rule, change something, exclude a server that is detected unhealthy. All these changes get propagated globally in less than 5 seconds. This is especially important for customers, say like Visa and Garmin, who use us for a load balancing solution, who really want to move fast and don't want their load balancing capabilities to slow them down. And it's very important to note that no one else in the market load balances at every POP. This is something that's unique to Cloudflare, but sometimes we kind of underrate this advantage, and we should in fact be pitching more of this to our customers. Now, Cloudflare load balancing, this is the second reason why our customers choose us, is because we fit seamlessly into any heterogeneous cloud environment, multi-hybrid, whatever you say. And the customers get to manage all their traffic from one place, the Cloudflare dashboard. We make it that simple for them. What this means for their customers is, A, they have the agility to create rules at one place and deploy them across the infrastructure at the click of a button. They get to save costs by avoiding the costly vendor lock-ins. And third, they actually get better visibility via the centralized dashboard that we offer them. The third reason why customers choose us is because of our analytics, our granular analytics. And when I say analytics, I just don't mean the raw logs, but rather it's the visual representation of traffic patterns and origin health for the entire infrastructure that actually helps them take business-oriented decisions. There are 2 types of analytics that our solution offers. First is the traffic analytics that gives the customer a granular view of their traffic. They can identify which origins or pools are being selected for the traffic and why are they being selected. They can see visualization of the traffic across load balancers, pools, origins over a variable time period. And the second type of analytics is the health check analytics. Now, these are real-time maps to analyze the responsiveness of their origins around the world, no matter where they're hosted, on-prem, in the cloud, in a hybrid environment. Identifying the regions where requests are underperforming so that they can timely investigate the cause of failure is extremely important for our customers. And in the instance in which actually something unexpected takes place, users get notified of an issue through an email, bringing them directly to the load balancing analytics page to see actually what is happening, where the traffic is going, get a detailed insight into any errors. And this is really truly appreciated by our customers because it decreases the time to resolution for them. And lastly, we make load balancing easy. And yes, every product should be simple. It should be easy to manage. But the fact is, in case of load balancers, other solutions in the market are actually not as easy to set up. For hardware load balancers, just as we saw, the largest chunk actually lies with F5. You have to hire an entire team just who are specialists in iRules, who can manage the iRules, and it's so tough to scale. For AWS, while it might be easy to scale, it's really complicated to set up, manage, create new rules, propagate them globally, and that stands to our advantage. Because at the end of the day, the organizations want a solution that they can set and forget. I'll now hand over to Brian, who will go deeper into the different use cases for load balancing.
Hello, everybody. All right, so let's jump into some common use cases for load balancing, and then we'll go into a little bit more of some unique cases. So let's imagine you're browsing on Etsy, whatever shop you usually go on. You begin to add some amazing products to your cart. You're getting really excited. You're adding items. You're going to now go to checkout, and you find out that these products are actually are not available in your region and where you are locally. Now your entire experience has been a bit tarnished. Maybe your trust in Etsy has gone down a little bit, and maybe you feel like you've wasted some time. These are not items that we or our customers want for their users. By utilizing our CDN to ensure local content is shown to the correct audiences, leveraging Argo smart routing technology to ensure all requests are taking the path of the lowest latency and are most performant, and lastly, using the power of our load balancer to ensure no single origin is ever exceeding its current capacity, in turn not serving any errors to our customers, we reach a really wonderful and seamless solution of selling CDN, Argo Smart Routing, LB to achieve uninterrupted and performant user experiences and also deliver the content that is most meaningful to our users. This is going to come up quite often and is largely a bit of our bread and butter with load balancing. Next, as Cloudflare grows, we've seen an emerging set of customers coming in for DNS-specific deals. Many DNS providers today have global traffic management and they can load balance, but they really have some bare bones functionality, largely not enough to suffice many of the customers in the market today. With our massive network, our Anycast system, and load balancing and health checking at every single pop in our network, our load balancing capabilities far surpass what the other DNS providers can offer. Since we have the fastest DNS in the world, it's a great land and expand play to show the massive benefits of our DNS capabilities, our secondary DNS, all the other items that Dina and her team are working on through the year. And on top of that, we have DNS-only load balancing as well. Users can leverage almost every capability of our L7 load balancing options with a few minor differences. And so we have seen a significant amount of traffic coming in with the coupling of these products and absolutely believe that we'll see a continual adoption for both DNS only load balancing and DNS specific deals. Lastly, for our common use cases that we've been seeing time and time again, users want to take more control around their traffic steering and origin selection decisions. Instead of having to wait for Cloudflare to build every feature as a first-class citizen, users can purchase workers in conjunction with load balancing and build out and apply their custom rules that we don't yet support today so that they have much more flexibility and control of their traffic. And one thing to mention that's incredibly important is that soon at the end of this year, we're going to bring all this capability of creating your custom rules directly into load balancing. So therefore, we can compete much more directly with F5 and continue to very aggressively take away that 73% market share that we currently hold today. Now, let's go into a little bit more of some unique items. You will commonly hear, and customers will come to you to say, I want to get rid of my X5 box. And so we know that F5s as an overall solution are on the decline. Oops. Hence them starting to invest in their virtual load balancer. But between us, that has a ways to go. People understand that the massive upfront cost, the overall overhead, etc., is not really scalable way to continue building their business. As the boxes themselves range at the low end of 20K, stretching upwards of $200,000 plus, just for the box, not even including the support cost, the licensing fees, the list kind of continues on. And on top of that, companies, as Diksha mentioned, need to hire specific teams who can set up, maintain, and are also experts at iRules, which in itself is a domain-specific language. At this point, businesses have already invested hundreds of thousands of dollars into a solution that now they know will not scale. This also creates SPOFs, right, or single points of failure, which companies absolutely detest. Depending on a very particular key person to make any changes, drastically slows down development and overall the business velocity. A great way to start the conversation when a customer says that they want to get rid of their F5 is the ease of use and setup, not only for our load balancer, which can be set up in literally a matter of minutes, but also our WAF product. Now you may be asking yourself, well, why is Brian bringing up a WAF? This is a load balancing sales enablement. Well, F5 deeply couples together their WAF and LB offering. And this makes sense, right? To get rid of the illegitimate traffic up front and then to load balance legitimate traffic, which is much more meaningful to the business. Thus, to ensure that we demonstrate that we not only have parity with our cloud solution, that is in fact better, we want to pitch our WAF, our LBs, and our LBs incredible ease of use and setup. The ease of setup and maintenance value prop is crucial to ensuring that we will win the F5 decision, especially as anyone from a customer's dev team can now go in and make configuration changes, eliminating the key person dependencies. We are also vastly cheaper in comparison to F5 and have a level of brand trust that we will grow and scale with the customer that they know that they can depend on. Remember, we do really well against F5. People want to move away from them. They want to replace it with the cloud offering. And at the end of the year, once we are offering LB rules as well, we will have the flexibility and agility offered by F5 with their iRules, but in a vastly, vastly easier implementation. The next unique case that is going to come up is containerized architectures or containerized deployments. Now you may be asking, what are containerized deployments overall, and why are containers even used in system architecture? Let's take a moment to understand what this actually is. With containerized deployments and architectures, customers will have a number, without them, will have a number of dependencies in their system that they need to set up, and it's very time consuming. And this is not limited to, but includes creating their virtual machines, specific operating system that's needed for it, and there are a running list of other service dependencies that could exist within their infrastructure that also has to deal with a lot of time savings, a lot of maintenance costs, and on top of comparing to virtual machines, they have to deal with cold starts, which is the time it takes to spin up the VM and get the process going. With containers, they already have the OS loaded. They don't run into the cold start issue, which lends to a large amount of time being saved and is massively easier overall to set up with less dependencies in your system. Lastly, it is drastically easier and faster to deploy to almost any environment type, greatly increasing your overall development agility and your business velocity. These benefits are very important to starting or bootstrapping a business, and we largely see this type of setup used with our pro and lower end of the biz and plans. But that's not to say that we're not going to see this in the higher end biz plans and enterprise plans as well. They just usually have many more resources and time to be able to invest into a larger and more complex infrastructures that largely include what we're seeing on the screen today. So pitching our load balancer is an easy win here. We will fit very seamlessly in this type of setup. And for example, if maybe they're using a microservice architecture in conjunction with this, you can CNAME all the different services over to our load balancing host name and route all their traffic through our Cloudflare load balancer before making it to the rest of the infrastructure, thus very easily providing the value to our customers. Again, this is very easy to set up. It will work seamlessly. And there's a link here on the slide that links to a recent blog post that Matthew had written that covers a number of these top concepts that I highly recommend everyone, if you haven't read it already, go through and also share with your customers. Next, you're going to hear much more about this is auto scaling. Now, auto scaling allows a business to keep the size of their infrastructure much more closely coupled with the inbound traffic to their application. The graphic we see up here is actually taken from one of our largest enterprise customers today, who recently used our Argo Tunnel offering with load balancing to remove their needs of the Amazon ELB. As today, we don't yet support users to be able to control their auto scaling efforts directly from Cloudflare load balancing, we do work very nicely with this type of architecture, and we enable customers to scale up or down their servers based on their load balancing needs, but we still will steer the traffic and handle the origin selection decisions like we do in any other type of scenario. By using Argo Tunnel in conjunction with our LB, users can set up a specific config, such as a particular port and other additional details, to speak directly to their auto-scaling group or to a user's control plane, such as Kubernetes, that we often will see is becoming very dominant in the market. So they can gracefully shut down origins, spin items up or down, and then on top of this, the changes that are done through Argo Tunnel will also show up on the load balancing side of the dashboard. Thus, it makes a very seamless experience. It avoids duplicative work for our users, and we're going to continue to very heavily invest here. There's a project that's going on this quarter with the load balancing and Argo Tunnel teams called Named Argo Tunnels, which is going to remove many of the complexities and the issues that customers have been running into up to now with Argo Tunnel, and largely will make this coupling much more integrated, much easier to use, and a very, very fantastic offering for our customers. Lastly, you're going to commonly hear that users want to ensure that they have disaster recovery or a high availability plan in their infrastructure, and they want to know, where does load balancing come into play? Largely, these scenarios are going to be split between two different types of terminology, active-active and active-passive. And it's very important to understand the differences between both. So active-active, as it applies to Cloudflare, we're going to have two different pools with different sets of origins, yet supporting the same services and or application. This gives the customer a lot of processing power, as you have many, many servers to be able to handle the influx of requests or any additional spikes that may come into play, and also ensure that if anything does go wrong and a particular pool is marked unhealthy, the second pool that is also working in conjunction will immediately take and handle all the traffic on the first unhealthy pool, and then seamlessly continue the user experience. We're going to see this setup largely used with session affinity or session persistence to pin the customer to a particular origin and maintain their sessions as requests are being made, so then they're not kicked out of their form fill or kicked out of their shopping cart as their next request is going through our system. This type of setup is incredibly flexible for any planned or unplanned type of outages situations. The next is active passive. It's a little bit different. Instead of having both pools set up with different sets of origins in parallel, they're actually, one is going to run in a standby mode, or our secondary pool will run in standby where it's only getting health checked. This means that if any single time where the first pool or the primary ever has an issue and is marked to be unhealthy, we're immediately going to transfer all of that traffic to the secondary pool. It will pick up without a beat. And again, command all the traffic to make sure that no errors are served to customers and uptime is maximized. Now I'm going to pass it back to Diksha to cover our landscape and how we're going to win.
Awesome, thanks, Brian. So let's just look at the competitive landscape and the key differentiators that help us win against different vendors. Broadly, we see the market in three categories. The first category is the hardware load balancers, such as F5, Citrix, and Kemp. The second category is the software load balancers, which are offered by the cloud providers, AWS, GCP, and Azure. And the third category are the cloud-based load balancers that are offered by the likes of Akamai, Fastly, or companies that are very similar to us. So when we look at the first category of vendors, the hardware load balancers, there are three main value propositions that help us win there. The first one is the drastic improvement in latency that our customers can get as compared to hardware load balancers, especially if they have a distributed user base in different countries. The second one is more around the improved agility and reduction in total cost of ownership that the customers get by moving away from hardware solutions, especially if they're in a growing business, they are entering new market segments. This is the reduction in the cost and improvement in agility is especially important to them. And the third reason, and the third value proposition that sticks really well with this category of customers is the movement towards vendor consolidation. It really helps that we offer a deeply integrated security offering with our load balancing solution. Now, some of the roadblocks or the objections that you might face when you go against these set of customers is, the first is the lack of granular rules. Especially the rules, the kind of rules that F5 offers. Now, these businesses have been operating for ages and they have put their sweat and money into building out these granular rules. So how do we tackle this? Now, as Brian mentioned, we have LB rules coming into launch in Q4, and we are very confident that with the launch of LB rules, we'll be able to compete head on with I rules, and plus our setup will be much more simpler to manage and maintain. And the second category of objection that you might get is around the local traffic management for on-prem infrastructure. Now, the truth about this situation is that we do not really support local traffic management for on-prem data centers. That's not one of our key capabilities. And there are two reasons for that. First, it's a declining space, and we don't want to focus on the area that is already sunsetting. Thus, LTMs are meant to collect much more data, center-specific data that we aren't really targeting our product to solve. But if a customer really wants to use their existing solution for LTM and use it in combination with our solution for global traffic management, we fit seamlessly well in that setup, and they actually end up seeing drastic performance improvements. As an example, Visa had a similar setup with us. They continued using F5 for their local traffic management and used us for their global traffic management. Moving on, against the load balancing solutions offered by the cloud providers, the main value proposition that sticks with the customers is that we are vendor agnostic solution that fit in any environment. And the second the proposition is more around the drastic performance improvement that they get because we have a larger network than any of these cloud providers. And the fact that we perform load balancing at every POP, we basically get you closer to your end users. And the third is the ease of use, just spinning up new LBs and propagating changes is so much faster and simpler with us. Now, some of the roadblocks that you might face when competing against these vendors is, first is the lack of auto scaling that LB offers. And like Brian mentioned, until our auto scaling functionality comes out in 2021 in our load balancing UI, customers can be suggested the load balancing plus Argo tunnel setup. The second set of objections that we see coming from this set of vendors that we see from customers who are using the load balancing solutions offered by cloud providers is that we have higher pricing. We have heard time and again that our LB pricing is prohibitive and we at times lose a deal because of the pricing. We do not want that to happen. Our new pricing changes will make us extremely competitive, especially with bundle discounts for bulk deals. And that's something that Brian has been working really actively with the pricing team, and we should hopefully have a new pricing and packaging coming out by the end of this quarter. And another point to note is that most of the cloud providers, they charge separately for global traffic management, for health checks, for local traffic management. We do not do that. In fact, AWS charges extra for in-depth analytics, and we give that as free feature in our package. The next category of vendors that we see are the Akamai's and that offer a similar product, or DNS providers such as NS1 that offer a load balancing solution, but that's pretty much bare bones. The three value propositions that really help us win against these providers is, again, the fact that we load balance and health check at every pop. That is extremely important, especially since Akamai does not do that. And most of the customers are very well surprised when we tell them that we do have this functionality. The ease of use of like spinning new LBs is extremely important, and we have examples such as Garmin and Visa who came to us from Akamai because of our ease of use. And the third is the advanced analytics. Most of these providers in this category do offer analytics, but that's pretty much bare bones. What we offer is more in-depth, and it's more business oriented for the leaders who are actually looking at this data to make more intelligent decisions. So quickly looking at the target segment. So some of these titles involved in the load balancing buying decision, they might look familiar to you. You will find them overlapping with the titles that buy our other performance and security offerings, which is actually great because it reduces the cycle of making additional sales in the entire journey. Moving on, we broadly see six, next slide, thanks. We broadly see 6 characteristics that we feel could be really helpful in identifying the right customers. And these are some of the characteristics that we actually use to run our marketing campaigns as well. These characteristics include, first, broadly those customers with multiple origin servers across different locations, or multiple origin servers within the data centers, or maybe organizations with user base in more than one region, or those organizations such as, say, banks or e-commerce companies that have a high dollar benefit for every second of latency improvement. Lastly, if you see existing customers that are seeing a high number of 5xx errors, they are a good target for load balancing solutions. And lastly, if you have companies that have a need for sticky user sessions, that is binding a customer to a specific origin for a certain point of time, that's really, load balancing basically helps in that use case as well. These are some of the industries where we see large marquee names using our load balancing solution. And not to say that these are the only industries where it sells. We have seen a good use case across different industries, but this is just a representation of, yes, large names trust us with load balancing. It's a good solution which can fulfill the use cases across different industries. So I will now hand over to Brian to finish the session with what's upcoming with load balancing.
All right, everybody. So I know we're at the end of time. Thank you for sticking with us. So we've been doing a lot on load balancing this year. This is only covering just part of what we've done today. But so what we've finished out is we're in the next week, we'll have origin train plus some enhancements done where users can gracefully shut down their origins, be able to take them out of rotation, but not sever any active user sessions. This makes the benefit for being able to edit your configuration, edit your infrastructure, being able to take items, servers in and out of rotation, very, very easy and very, very seamless for the customer. But more important, we've been talking about load balancing rules. Today, customers don't have a clear productized way of being able to apply their own custom logic, their own behavior on their traffic steering or origin selection details. And so with load balancing rules, we're going into a beta in very, very soon, I believe the start of October. And with that, users will be able to, in a much, much easier implementation, be able to create their own custom rules, such as load balancing by path, being able to load balance by time of day, being able to set a specific per origin header override. This will open up the floodgates for flexibility for our customers, be able to compete very directly and aggressively towards F5I rules. And we're really excited to push that out the door as well. One last item I want to tell you all about is our new product, a little bit separate from load balancing, which is our waiting room. We're going into an early access for our waiting room starting in the end of August. And this is a reliability product that acts as an extension of the user's brand already. But instead of serving error pages when your infrastructure is overwhelmed by the digital traffic that we've seen and never seen the likes of before during the global pandemic, the waiting room will be able to queue folks, provide a stellar user experience, letting them know that, hey, things are a little busy. They're going to be let into the room in an estimated amount of time, which we display. And again, we've seen a very, very high amount of demand for this type of product moving forward. And I'm very, very excited to push this out this year. And we'll be going GA beginning of November to ensure that we make it in time for holidays and Black Friday. Moving into 2021, we're going to look into a deep integration with Magic Transit, being able to being able to spearhead some of those use cases with on-premise infrastructures, and also the auto-scaling instances, which is a huge item boulder for us as we're going to tackle that in 2021. Last, we wanted to end this end the session with, load balancing is a great hook. It resonates very heavily with the top of mind concerns of our customers, and every business that is operating today, especially with the influx of digital traffic, is going to need a load balancer. Next, to be able to increase your ACV by a whopping 25%, please bring up load balancing. We know it's top of mind concern, and it's a great way to continue to build out the overall ACV of your deals. And lastly, be a hero to your customers. Load balancing is incredibly mature. It's one of our oldest products. And on top of that, we have a massively packed roadmap. We've been increasing the amount of marketing pipeline that we've been generating. And again, we've only had 3 incidents this year out of a total of 300, which lends to an incredibly resilient and stable product. Here's a link of additional materials for our brand new sales deck, our 2-pager, battle cards stretching along AWS and F5, a feature comparison matrix to help you understand and communicate the differences and where we win with Cloudflare load balancing. And then very soon, we're going to be having a fantastic demo video, which we can show to users. On top of that, an early explainer video for your early conversations. We're really excited to push this out to you all. And if you have any questions, please feel free to let us know. Thank you so much for joining.
So we had some questions come throughout the chat. So I'll raise a few of them in the last 5 minutes that we have. The first one was from Jay, which was can you touch on the difference, I guess, between Neustar, F5, and Akamai? I think we touched that in the competitive landscape, but the second part of your question was, is this DNS-based load balancing?
Sorry to understand the second part. Is what specifically DNS load balancing?
Or maybe you could take the last couple of minutes describing the difference between DNS.
Yes. So DNS load balancing means that instead of the request being an HTTP request and going internally to our system to then have to our internal resolver, and where our system called G6 makes the steering or origin selection decisions, when it is a DNS only load balancer, or what we call gray clouded, we actually send the request out to the external resolver, and we actually ask the external resolver and say, hey, which pool do we send these requests to? That is then sent back to us, and then we follow that designation. Some of the differences you might see is, first off, session persistence will not work in the cookie option since it's a DNS only request that has no session. And so you can use our cookie with IP fallback, but that is a deterministic option, and so it will not be as robust and as literally persistent as a L7 HTTP stateful type of session. The other item is that when you weight the request at an origin level in your pool itself, let's say you do a 50-50 weighting, because the external resolver does cache many requests, you can see a diff in terms of what that weighting looks like because of that caching, but at volume, it largely will look to be the same. Those are a few of the main differences. And then Jay, please feel free to ping me later, and then we can go much more in detail if you have any more specific questions with specific customers.
Cool, thank you.
Another quick question we got from Beth was, is this deck customer facing?
So we have a different product deck, which would be customer facing. A lot of the slides that you've seen in this presentation would be there as well, but this deck specifically would not be customer facing.
Thank you. And then in our last 2 minutes here, Brandon asked a question that I think might take us a little bit into the weeds, But Brandon was curious about some of the more granular details of load balancing when integrated with workers. If we can even start to tackle that in 2 minutes, or do you want to take that offline?
Yeah, let's take that offline. That's a bit much. Yeah, I can tell you at the get-go, there are some implementation details that will be required, to actually spin up your worker and get it ready. What we will be doing is when we move forward with W rules, those implementation details are actually going to be removed. And so the value prop of easy to use and setup is only going to be bolstered much more. It removes the need for any domain-specific language within Cloudflare, since there will be a really wonderful GUI to be able to handle and or conditionals in the same conditional in the rule itself. There's also an expression builder, which is basically our hybrid approach of being able to allow you to interact a little bit with the code, but still be able to have a very easy barrier to entry to use it. In terms of using it with a worker, again, we should probably take it offline, but there is a little bit more work involved up front. And then we will need to make the health information accessible to the worker. That is within our plans of this year.
Diksha, question for you. These documents that you mentioning, the customer facing deck, the 2-pager, the battle cards, feature comparison.
It's all in Showpad.
All on Showpad, right? Okay, perfect. You knew what I was going to say.
Yeah.
And following this, I'll post the recording of this to Showpad, and I'll make the deck and the recording available to everyone in Namer Sales.
Great. Thank you all so much for joining.
Yeah,
Thank
thanks.
you. Thank you, everyone.
We're about at time. Thank you so much, Diksha and Brian. This was great. I'm glad we were able to do this after quite some time. So thank you so much. With further questions, please respond either to my email, which sends out the recording in this deck, or of course to Diksha and Brian themselves. They're definitely your SMEs here, so please feel free to use them as such. And with that, I will pause the recording and end the session. Thank you so much for coming, everybody, and have a great Monday afternoon.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.